4. Oh, no. I'm on record. Damn. I have to be careful. No swearing. None of that Joe Biden stuff, you know. Oops. Yeah, well, anyway. So, yeah, sometimes the truth hurts, but anyway. Again, this is the M&A forum. We got program.
Oh, you ready to go? All right.
Well, welcome those folks. Well, let's see. Should we do this? Oh, whoops. I was going to say we got the folks from the on the online.
Yeah, why don't we do the introductions first?
Okay, let's do that. We're gonna flip this thing on its head a little bit. But we got some folks online, and we got actually a lot of new faces. So what we're going to do is we'll start with the introductions. So you got a mouthful of food, pass it to your neighbor, and then go back. Okay. Starting online, Colleen, you want to introduce yourself?
Sure.
Give us
my name is Colleen Meagle. I'm an M&A attorney. I think I've popped in once or twice in person. I do have a newborn, so I'm on Zoom today. I hope to come in person soon again, but I'm a little jealous of all of y'all getting extra networking in, but I'm looking forward to hearing the presentation today. I saw it pop through my email and I was like, oh, I really want to hear what you have to say. So looking forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us, and hopefully next month we will be back here. So maybe come by, probably want to leave the new board at home because all these good folks will be just paying attention to the new board. They won't pay any attention to the speaker. So, right, Gretchen? That's going to happen, isn't it?
That's right. That's right. Well, I guess since I'm unmuted, I go next. I'm Gretchen Lawler. I'm with G&A Partners. We help with the HR resources that you need and payroll, benefits, cost controls, and workers' comp. Do a lot with mergers and acquisitions with my clients. So this is a great forum I've enjoyed being part of for many years now, and look forward to spending more time in person. I'd be there today as well, but I have symptoms of COVID, and I've been exposed, so I'm keeping you guys safe. So again, I'm Gretchen with G&A Partners, and I hope to see you in person real soon.
Thank you, Gretchen. Thanks for joining us and highlighting the fact that there is a reason to stay safe around here. So I'm looking forward to it. Randy.
Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone. Randy Fernandez, Excel Equity. It's been a while since I've seen you all, and glad to hear everyone as well. And I look forward to opportunities to be in person with you all. Stay well.
Thanks for joining us. And the other Randy Johnson. You want to say hello?
Oh, sorry.
That's okay.
Good afternoon. My name is Ryan Johnson. I'm a senior partner with the Lara Group. I'm an employee benefits broker and consultant focused on mid-market employers benefit programs.
I'm sorry, what was your firm again, Randy?
Alara Group, A-L-E-R-A.
Okay, is that a new company or you've been around a while?
We're a handful of years old. We combined a lot of benefit brokers back in 2016. We're now the 10th largest benefit brokerage firm in the country, and we focus on commercial insurance.
Excellent.
Yeah, that's Ryan, by the way. I want to make sure you heard him okay, because it cut out. Yeah, Ryan Johnson.
Ryan, yeah, thanks.
Okay, my apologies. Melissa Taylor, hello. You want to introduce yourself? Thank you for joining us.
Sure. Not feeling all that great, so I can type this in the chat. I'm gonna type it in the chat.
That's fine. That's fine. We won't force anything out of your throat there. While she's typing, we got Anthony. You want to say hello and introduce yourself while she's typing?
Hello, everyone. My name is Anthony Cardell. I'm with Valuation Consulting and Advisory, and I'm glad you guys are doing this. It's always good to keep current on what's going on.
Thank you for joining us. There we go. Melissa Taylor. Oh, now CFO. Hello, now CFO. Good to see somebody. Good to see somebody that's been part of this forum for most of the last 15 years, I think. So thanks for joining us. Okay, we're going to do a very quick round the room. 'cause we
Good
got-
guy.
Oh, did I miss Guy? Oh, Guy. Okay, I see a voice. Guy, are you there?
He's muted.
Okay.
All right.
We can't unmute Guy at the moment. So, oh, there, I see him down there. Mhm. Okay. Well, we'll see if we can come back to him. All right, let's go do a quick, George, you're standing.
I am. I'll see to the corner, but I will pick up from there.
Okay. Ladies first, thank you very much.
Hello, everybody. I'm Diana with Cascade Credit. We do, I'm a collateral examiner and we do asset-based lending.
Be sure to speak up. Some of these people are a long ways away.
Okay.
So it's the microphone. Thank you.
Those of you who know me, know I don't have a problem projecting, so that microphone won't be a problem. My name is George Kuriski. My law firm is Johnson, DeLuca, Kuriski and Gould, for corporate transaction and trial lawyers. I'm a co-founder of this group, so I am heartened to see the participation. Glad that everybody's here. I know the vast majority of you have worked with or for the vast majority of those of you that I don't know, look forward to the meeting during this meeting. Hopefully, if I can be a resource in any way or otherwise, call on me. My name is George Christie. Johnson, cool. Welcome to the M&A Forum. Thanks.
Hello, Ray Fernandez. I'm a partner with a multifamily office, Crescent Asset Management, based in Chicago with 12 offices around the country. And I'm in the Houston office. It's our first Texas office. So Ray Fernandez, Crescent Asset Management.
Hello, Doug Hortz, RDH Advisors. Been a friend and investor advisory firm for some years. We focus on energy equities.
Energy equity?
Energy equities.
Back here.
Hi, I'm Jorge Ordonez. I'm a CFO. I'm the CFO of several companies, private equity sponsored capability and transition right now. We're into the opportunity and I do fractional work. We're interested in M&A topics.
Welcome, welcome.
Hello, everyone. My name is Yihao. I'm a financial analyst in Quantum Services. It's an infrastructure construction public company, and I work in an M&A department. So everything related to M&A, I like it. Glad here today.
Thank you for coming.
Hello, everyone. I'm Sarah Scott. I work at Creative Heights Marketing Agency for M&A, and I'm here with Kyle.
Hello, Kyle Griffin, company's Creative Heights. We're a full service marketing agency. Websites, graphic design, search email, photo, video, really the whole deal. And so yeah, we help out with M&A. So thank you.
Another brand name marketing firm. My name is Owais Qureshi. I'm the founder and principal of the Visual Q, visualq.com. I've been helping B2B companies for the past decade get dialed into exactly who they serve, how they're legally positioned in the marketplace, and of course, how all of that translates to an increased business performance and evaluation of their company. Of course, that lines up with many of the companies that are either being bought or sold, and how the valuation is impacted as a result.
Thank you.
Thank you. Always great.
All right, let's Brad, come on.
Well, greetings, Brett Ash. I work at commercial real estate company. I basically provide commercial real estate services from lease, office lease, or purchase, owner occupied, or even retail.
And I'm Will Edgerton.
All right, I'm trying to juggle my hands.
Gonna be wearing whatever's in your glasses. Go back over here, please.
Tim Draper, I'm an M&A advisor for Waste Connections, background in private equity, CFOs for private equity groups, and tax advisors.
Thank you.
Eric. Eric Nicky with Statesman Business Advisors, Statesman Corporate Finance for a lower middle market investment bank, and we're working with companies in the 3 to 30 million.
I'm Paola Velasco. I do marketing for Siemens Energy, an oil and gas and now energy company. And my job is to help them expand on their digital marketing strategies. I am going to the University of Houston and majoring in investment banking. So I'm going to the UNC.
And where is your accent from, please?
I don't know if I had an accent.
Oh, surprise. Well, maybe I have an accent, yes.
But I'm originally from Monterrey, Mexico. But I came here when I was 3, so I consider myself a Houstonian. So I don't know. Maybe I used to live in Italy before I moved to
You're a good sport. Thank you. Welcome to Monterey.
I'm Corbin Bates. I work for a Bates family office. Primarily doing a lot of real estate for the family. For the past 4 years, I've done all their private equity investment for them. And in this upcoming year, ready to go back to leading people again. So looking to purchase a small Houston-based company together with the family. Go run that afterwards.
Any particular direction in terms of your search?
Love service-based businesses, light manufacturing. Really just looking for a company that has good growth opportunities and kind of more people-based stuff. Pretty open. Geographically restricted Houston. Size restricted, pretty small, probably less than 2 million. Industry is pretty open. So,
But more B2B rather than retail or?
Likely more B2B. Yeah, probably not retail. Be open to some B2C, but it will probably be B2B.
Okay.
Generally open.
Okay. Got some people.
Hi, I'm Kathy Maley. I work for Macro Restructuring Group, and they are financial advisors in the mid-market. Done a lot of restructuring just so clients, I'm the one who does bankruptcy for free. Case closed because I had 27 years as a non-attorney in a law firm. So transitioned well from going from law firm to financial advisory. Love it. So anyways.
Is it possible to pass a mic around?
No, it's too big.
Yeah, we got a big one. Let me.
Can we get people in the room to really speak up?
Jim, can you speak up, please?
I'm Jim Eaton with Business Acquisitions. We are business brokers. We work with Main Street businesses primarily in lower middle market, generally businesses under 10 million a year of revenue. And also a recovering CPA.
My name is Jag Sid. I'm working right now with Western Sutton Financial Advisory Work, Wealth Management. My background is in private equity. Prior to that.
Good afternoon, Michael Grant. I am business development with Sears Cybersecurity, recovering CPA as well, but been the business development side with both IT and public accounting. Sears Cyber, 15-person, focus on the mid-market. We do a lot of security assessments, help organizations mid-market and below build security roadmaps, existing security products that they have. We'll do assessments, the red, yellow, green, help people close areas that they need to close from a security standpoint. We are also solution integrators with a lot of the identity security tools, SailPoint, Cyber, Octaping, Duo. Those things do identity security, access management, single sign-on, multi-factor authentication, get access management. Who's got rights to what? What are they doing with the rights? Should they have those rights? So we do the integration work with a lot of different companies. Thank you.
Are you finding a lot of business these days?
Absolutely.
Have you grown in terms of people? Let me ask.
Yes, we have. I was employee number 1 2 years ago and 24 days ago. We got 15 now. So
excellent, excellent.
I'm Dan Sweet. I'm the managing partner for Sweet Bee Partners. We're a PE firm, Houston-based, covering technologists. We acquire businesses within the state of Texas, 1 to 20 million in revenue. B2B and our specialty areas are an odd mix of technology, construction, and energy firms. We are looking to do a lot more acquisitions this year because somebody has to support Colleen's new son.
What on the energy side, what on the service side or production side? Or?
More on the services side, yeah. Really within, specifically within oil and gas, asset light is better at this point than asset heavy, just because of these changes we're about to go through.
Hello, everyone. I'm Michelle Wright with Allegiance Bank. I do SBA lending, and I work on a lot of business acquisitions lately. Anyone wanting to construct a building, buy a building, expand, even some startups. So I'm Michelle Wright with Allegiance Bank.
Good to see you again.
Good morning, good afternoon. I'm JB Lender and I'm with Imperial, and we are internal accounting, a lot of project work, cleanup and catch up, redeal.
Hi, I'm Casey Carmody. I'm an independent insurance consultant.
Casey,
good to see you.
Yes. See you again.
So M&A, any stage from acquisition, disposition, preparing, and long-term strategies. So I'm agnostic on industry. I specialize in risk and risk management.
That's really good to see you, Casey.
Hi, Rick Sutter, with Sutter Search, my wife and I, Jen Sutter, some of y'all may know her. On the firm, we are a retained executive search firm, so we help companies go out and find executive level talent. We also do manager, director type level, primarily for private equity and their portfolio companies. We're not bound to that, but that tends to be where most practice.
Hello, John Gonzalez. I work for a bank here called Bank of Houston, primarily doing real estate and commercial things. John, welcome.
Rajesh Walalkar with NMTech Capital. It's a family office from private equity. We started somewhere in 2015. We are global presence now, looking at M&A acquisitions, industrial services, IT, startup, cash flow producing companies. Range from $1 million to about $20 million top line revenue.
Top line revenue, okay. Any EBITDA hurdles or you're welcome to look at things that are on the way up and some that are a little more mature, I take it. Okay.
Lester Huang, and I do anything. And so we're covering CFO right now, just providing CFO services to PE-backed companies.
Thank you, Gary.
I'm gonna stand over here.
Okay.
I've been dodging that camera all morning. Move over here. I'm Gary Brooks. Been a member here for some time. I'm an interim CFO, been at it for 20 years, and work with all kinds of companies, usually sell-side entrepreneurs. They'll call us in to fix an RFP problem. What they really want to know is how to manage the financial markets to put the government position to set. And a lot of
Bill, I'll do the introduction to you in just a minute, so we'll go over here.
Hi. Oh, hi. Hi. Good afternoon. I'm Libby Covington, and we work at Craig Group with private equity-backed companies on strategic growth. I have a background in private equity and investment banking, and we work primarily when they're first acquired and help with setting the growth plan. And differently than some of my colleagues back there, we don't work on the creative. We work mainly on the paid media and ROI. So we're really working with CEOs to see, if you do this advertising, if you do this type of thing, what's the return on investment? What are you getting? And tie it back to revenue. So that's what we do.
That's firm and what?
Craig Group.
Craig Group.
Craig Group, yes. I know many in this room from my previous role. So good to see everybody.
I'm Rich Mungel. I own a small chemical company near Sugar Land called Biotechnology Solutions, which I bought in 2017 through a connection I made here at the M&A Forum. So I'm a success story.
And we bought out a small competitor in September, so I'm looking for small lab and lab product, chemical related deals, probably 2 to 10 million in revenue, kind of below what private equity goes after. That by myself through a combination of retained earnings and SBA financing. If anybody has deal flow in that area, please come get the card. Thank you.
I'm Ken Mays, and the current company is actually being transitioned to another acquisition company. But I'm with Mays Co. The company we're kind of creating right now, it's All-American Aqualine, in which case it's a water transportation company, and we'll be working with a desal plant, hopefully here in Houston, and be providing water throughout Texas. Ken Mays.
Becker Diaz, still pass gas for a living. We build, own, and operate most of pipeline terminal business downstream. We acquire, we divest, and we move into various sectors, domestic and internationally. Considering, I call it Aqualine. We pay how much taxes or those countries that need to supply with water. And this great group is through the years, it's been a phenomenal resource.
Good afternoon, Austin Snap, Executive Leadership and Business Coach with the Focal Point Coaching and Training Organization, assisting sellers on their journey to exit so they can exit at better valuations.
He already did it, and I'll let you introduce yourself in a minute, Bob. Let's go to the slides at this point in time. And I'll introduce. While Bob's switching over, I said Mike Dalkey, glad to be your moderator. CSB Partners is my company. Look to consult, have been consulting with upcoming gas folks. That business is coming back. I'm not sure I want to go back to it, but anyway, that CSB Partners, again, do consulting, strategic consulting, business development, M&A in the oil and gas space, and put up some capital and different deals as well. CSB Partners, Mike Dalkey. This is the M&A Forum. It's great to welcome. It really, really is. Starting a new year, we began, I think, George, 2008, I think it was. So this will be year 14 coming up. So I appreciate everybody joining us for this kickoff. Excellent speaker today. Somebody backed by popular demand. Everybody seems to want to know the future. He seems to have his finger on the future. So get to that in just a minute. We'll roll it up. Let's see. Yes. We'll talk about the economic outlook for Houston with Dr. Bill Gilmer in just a moment. Gilmer. We are going to be back here on the 22nd of February. Sheila Darby from BizWorks is going to be. Put that on the calendar. Go up to the next one, I guess. Okay, we'll do this and then let Bob talk a little about himself and the business. M&A Forum. We're all about envisioning, a transparent business built on trust within the M&A community. Stakeholders, it's business owners, it's buyers, it's the folks that support the transactions. We're trying to build those trusted relationships. And again, build the trusted relationships so that we can get more deals done, like Mr. Menzel's deals. Founded on the principle of servant leadership. I brought that back a little bit because these days I feel like we need it. So I'll remind folks that servant leadership is about where we go, leadership, putting the stakeholders, as we talked about, ahead of your own, let's call it your own ego, your own perspective. This is from the, see, Vander is the, I think, the Boston Symphony Orchestra conductor. And his point is that the conductor doesn't make a sound. It's all about the power of the ability to make other people powerful. So, servant leader is judged by the leaders that he or she creates. Mission, Bob, some business perhaps.
Yes, indeed. Let me see if I can get in the frame here. See if I can get in the frame. Hey, everybody, and welcome. You may have noticed we have a membership drive on. It's going to go through the end of, let's see, January, February, March, April, end of April, right after the end of tax season. And there's a $250 reward in the form of an Amazon gift card for the person who brings in the most guests who then become members in the future. So if you've got some candidates, email them to me. If you just want to make them guests on the next event, when you register, go ahead and do that. So welcome, everybody. Like Mike said, it's encouraging to see the crowd.
And we had our sponsors up a minute ago. I think, don't we have a new sponsor?
As of this morning, and I haven't seen the email
Go back to
yet.
that screen, Mike, bottom right.
I'm sorry?
Go back to the screen that had sponsors on.
There we go. Yes, there we go. Go back on.
I want to know about duffel bags.
Bottom right.
Hey, it's good sentence. I don't know. I'm sorry. Wilson, he's not here today. Thought he was going to be here. And we do appreciate the support of everybody. And again, if you want to consider being a sponsor, hope you would at least talk to us, talk to Bob or myself, and we'll connect you with the programs and see what you want to do. So. Okay. Thinker, back by popular demand. Bill Gilmer from University of Houston, regional forecast. Regional forecast.
I hate to interrupt, but cannot hear anything you're saying.
Thank you, Gretchen.
You're
Is that
welcome.
because of the microphone, probably. I was introducing
Yeah,
Bill. Does that work?
Now I hear you great. So it might be position or head direction. It's possible.
Okay. Okay. So I guess, Bill, maybe you'll have to kind of stand over this way, but please come up, back by popular demand, as I said. Always in great insight. Nice to have you. Thank you.
Well, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here, and still interesting times. The more things change, the more things seem to change sometimes. Things. Basically, what I want to talk about today is how Houston has been recovering jobs at a record rate. Numbers look wonderful, but then you have to remember that how many jobs we lost. And we are still trying to work our way back to where we started in early 2020 in terms of overall job growth at this point in time. And the state and the nation are doing much better than we are. And there's one reason for that. It's called OIL. And we'll look at the numbers in just a minute. You know, the early part of this recovery was released from the lockdowns, and then came the vaccine stage. And we are now at the point where we are still trying to basically reassemble the business cycle. Now, in terms of federal policy, the stimulus is almost gone. We are working our way out of it. There's still still a complicated story. It's like, where's Waldo with his stimulus business? But we are moving to the stage where that massive hurricane of federal money is pretty much gone. The training wheels are back again, and we're going to have to relax and see how the economy fares from here. Also, the Federal Reserve is going to be providing some moderate headwinds. And so we can still expect to see some strong job gains this year, but it's going to be reassembling the business cycle, and even $100 oil may not have the kind of effect that you would hope to see. You may have to do the next slide. Okay, this is the Houston's economic picture over the last several years. This is Houston's payroll employment. The payroll employment figures that you see are for the U.S., which is the blue line, for Houston, which is the red line. You see the long trend there, and then suddenly a collapse into that lockdown period. The job loss was phenomenal. 67,000 jobs lost, about nearly 12% of employment in Houston, 22 million in the U.S. as a whole. You see a bounce back, a pretty good quick bounce back, faster in the U.S. in terms of the return of jobs, but that's because the lockdown was more stringent in the U.S. than it was typically across the state of Texas. And the jobs have come back, but they have not. They've not come back perhaps as fast as we would like. You look across the state. The line on the right side of this chart, this column on the right side of this chart, tells you the percentage recovery from that stringent lockdown period in early 2020. For Austin, 140% are back. And all of the jobs plus 40%. For Dallas, all the jobs plus almost 20%. For Fort Worth, all plus 7%. And when you get to Houston, about 75% of the jobs have returned. So we're still 90,000 jobs behind as of last Friday when the numbers were released. And the reason for that is right here. Look at Midland, Odessa. Midland, Odessa has brought back 15% of its employment to this point. And if you just sort of take a big oil blob like Midland, Odessa, just sort of transpose into Houston, you can see we got a big chunk of the economy that's really not performing. It's about 30% actually for employment in Houston. Now, where the jobs did come back, the jobs come back in 9 local service sectors. The service sectors, I don't see 9 of them here for some reason, but there supposed to be 9 of them. And the 9 service sectors are all contact sensitive jobs. Things like healthcare, retail sales, food service, bars and restaurants. And they made up about 42% of the jobs, these 9 sectors, but that 42% of the jobs accounted for 67% of the job losses that we sustained during the downturn period. So they were heavily involved in terms of those healthcare restrictions that we saw early in the recovery. Now, again, jobs returned in Houston first, simply easing the restrictions with the severe lockdown period. And then on top of that, as vaccines became available in February of last year, we saw a surge in employment. Suddenly people were comfortable going back to their favorite bar or restaurant. They were comfortable going to the barber or the beautician again, and these service jobs surged back. Over the last 6 months, however, this is pretty much stalled out. We're not seeing much of a recovery in these kinds of jobs. Next slide. Houston's unemployment rate peaked at 14.2%. This is basically the same story, just told with a different set of data. Unemployment rate had been around 3.9%, surges up to 14%, and comes down quickly, immediately with the release of jobs during the stringent lockdown period, and then tapers off we're at about a 5.9% unemployment rate, while the rest of the US has now returned to about 3.9. So again, we tend to lag. We're also still have in Houston 73,000 people who were unemployed, at least according to the numbers, 73,000 people who were unemployed, more than unemployed than before the pandemic. Then comes the stimulus. The stimulus is a large negative shock. The employment figures are a large negative shock, and then the stimulus points in exactly the opposite direction. This was a huge and massive increase that came in 3 phases. Phase 1 during the lockdown, December 2020, a new Congress, and we have January and February of 2021 when each of these big stimulus packages came through. Now, this is the first stimulus package and sort of how it held together. And I don't want to go into much detail here except to say about half of the $2.5 trillion, about half of that money went into the bank accounts of individuals and small businesses. It went in almost directly into people's pocketbooks, as directly as the government could make it back. And then when we do it again, they pretty much repeat the process, and we have another $2.5 trillion. Now, this $2.5 trillion, that's a lot of money. It's about $16,800 per household in the United States, done twice. So this was an enormous push in terms of the amount of money that was being spent. Next slide. The way it works, the way it worked out is here is the lockdown period. And we then trace and say, how are we doing relative to that lockdown period? And if you look at the red line, that's wages and salaries and the income of the self-employed. No stimulus in that. That's the paycheck that you can put in your hip pocket. And you can see that as soon as the lockdown occurred, we lost about 10% of wages and salaries. We spent almost all of 2020 working our way back to pre-COVID levels in terms of wages and salaries, and now stand about 10% up. If, in fact, we add the stimulus in, the stimulus during the lockdown, we were 10% richer collectively than we have ever been before. By the time you get to the third round of stimulus, we're briefly 25% richer than we have ever been before. And today we're still about 10% richer. So the U.S. retail sales has had a massive impact on sales. Americans have always been good at spending money, and we've managed to really prove it one more time. The chart on the left just shows you retail sales, billions, tens of billions of dollars. And basically what we find is that this is really just the chart of the stimulus packages done 1, 2, 3 on here if you look carefully and you look at timing. And it has worked out so we are about 100 each month, we're about $100 billion ahead in terms of total retail sales over what we were spending previously. And you can see that inflation has finally begun to really take a bite out of this, in recent months. Now, Houston was right in the middle of this. We shared in almost every way. The retail sales chart looks pretty much like that for the U.S. in terms of a rebound. We're not as up to date as the rest of the country, but there's no reason to think that Houston would in any way be any different from what we saw for the rest of the country. Big ticket items for Houston, auto and truck sales, for example, auto and truck sales on the left. This is just another chart of stimulus pack, the COVID arriving and then the stimulus packages coming back, 1, 2, 3. You can actually see though, however, if you look at the most recent sales, we're back at pandemic levels or a little bit below the pandemic levels. And I would guess that if you look at the price of automobiles on the right side of this chart, you get a pretty good indication of why automobiles might have slowed down just a little bit. And we can tell the same story for housing. Housing fell during the pandemic, and then single family housing sales in Houston jumped by a good solid 10% almost immediately, and have remained about 10% up and above the pre-pandemic pre-pandemic levels. There is nothing left to sell in Houston, at least officially, according to the MLS, but we still managed to get those strong sales somehow. But maybe the important point to make here is that if you look at prices on the right, with very limited supply, very strong demand, the price of the typical existing home in Houston compared to pre-pandemic levels is up 25% over the last couple of years. Extraordinary. Next. So where is all the stimulus? Are we finally going to see the last of it? And the answer is almost all of it. Yes, it is about gone, and we will see a little bit more trickle into the second half, through the first half of the coming year. April 2021, the economic impact payments have been handed out to households, but we were still running stimulus that was primarily driven by business through the Paycheck Protection Program and through unemployment compensation. All the different compensation programs with extended state benefits, pandemic extensions, gig and contractor relief, and just an extra $600 for everybody, just for the hell of it. And then that disappears. By the time we get to November of last year, those factors that disappear, and we have these three factors that are the big three. We have college loan forbearance and expanded Medicare payments, and those will continue until May and June of the coming year. Then in July, the Biden administration came in with $222 billion at annual rates that ran through all of the second half of last year. This was expanded child care tax credit. We don't have time to really talk about the details of that, but let me say that it's complicated, and it was actually accelerated because there was a bunch of money left over. Build Back Better came in. They wanted to spend this money really fast, and so they're big numbers on this expanded child care tax credit, but it ends in December. And unless Build Back Better legislation somehow revives this, it looks like that's gone as well. So basically, we can say the fiscal stimulus, I think, is pretty well behind us in terms of those kinds of programs. We do have some other fiscal spending to think about. However, there was a physical infrastructure bill that passed. Billed is about $1.2 trillion. Actually, most of that, about half of that money was already programmed to be spent under the highway program anyway. So it's about a $500 billion program. It's extended over 10 years. It will enter the system slowly. There's really no such thing as a camera-ready project, it turns out. The human infrastructure bill appears to have largely died at this point in time. We'll have to see what the Biden administration can revive, if it can revive any part of it. That would not, most of that would have been funded through taxes on corporations and high tax individuals, but there still would have been 350 or 400 not funded. That would have been stimulus if it had gone through. And the prospect of inflation has seen inflation surge, and the Fed, they're meeting today, but they have reacted already. And inflation that had been running at around 2% for many years previously suddenly has surged, and we found about 4% last year, and about 4% over steadily since May, and about 5.5% last year. Where does inflation go from here? Well, you have some estimates from consumers there. Consumers are historically very pessimistic. It's always going to be higher than it turns out. Professional forecasters are too optimistic. It's always going to be lower. Are too optimistic. They're always too low. It's going to be higher than they think. And probably the best place to turn if you really want to know is just to look at the financial markets and look at the Treasury inflation protected securities. And the financial markets are saying it'll be about 2.8% annually over the next 5 years, or about 2.5% perhaps over the next 10 years. And the Fed has, as I said, has reacted. The quantitative easing should largely disappear by the end of March. And I think 4 or 5 rate increases, depending on which talking head you like to listen to on Bloomberg, 4 or 5 rate increases are probably in the offing. These are the Fed's FOMC projections. And we lost this, but it's about 2%. It's about 2% by the end of 2024, according to the December FOMC summary of economic projections that the FOMC puts out. Now, I said the next problem for Houston is putting back together the business cycle. Now let's talk about the sense that the way I think we should think about the business cycle. And this is an idea, it's called the economic base. It's very crude. Most regional economists hate it because it's so simple and they have all these sophisticated equations they could be looking at. But this is quite an easy idea. Which jobs are we concerned about in the business cycle, and how would they differ from bars and restaurants, for example? I'll say just what I mean. Growth in Houston as a small regional economy is driven by its ability to export and sell to the rest of the world. So local growth depends on our ability of many companies to sell to the rest of the state, the rest of the nation, or the rest of the world. 1, 2, 3, just like that. And so oil is the obvious example in Houston in terms of selling to the rest of the world. And then we have many companies that sell not to oil, but the rest of the globe, like AIG or Men's Warehouse or Cisco, for example. And these companies make up the economic base. This is non-basic jobs are going to be our COVID-sensitive jobs in most cases. Retail sales, that's Houstonians, mostly Houstonians selling to Houstonians. Barbers and beauticians, Houstonian to Houstonian. Entertainment, theaters, the ballet, Houstonians for Houstonians. So we're interested in driving the regional economy by our ability to sell elsewhere. The vaccines brought back these jobs. These are local jobs. We're waiting for the rest of the world to recover to bring back the total number of jobs in that economic base. Here's what the numbers look like. About half of the jobs, and these are crude numbers, but about half of the economic base in Houston is oil. The other half of the economic base turns out to be something other than oil. And what did COVID do to us? It cost us, in terms of the decline in the economic base over the course of this downturn, about 87,000 jobs in the base. So far, since things turned around in February of 2021, and so far we've managed to bring back 34,000 jobs. But remember, for those COVID-sensitive jobs where we were able to bring back 80% of total employment in those 9 COVID-sensitive sectors, right? This says we brought back about 30% of the economic base. Yes, the U.S. is doing a little better, but we really need to be selling to the rest of the world, where about 30% of the vaccines, or 30% of the world is vaccinated. You look at what it cost us compared to past downturns, this 87,000 losses in the economic base constitutes a serious downturn. Not quite as bad as what happened to us in the fracking bust, and comparable to what happened to us in the Great Recession. So in terms of a business cycle event, it is something we have seen before, and we are almost sure to live through. What we're worried about in the coming year as we begin to look forward here is, first of all, we've seen the gains in the past come from relief from lockdowns, from the vaccines, and now we need to heal a broken business cycle. Only 1/3 of the world is vaccinated, and we still need to fix supply chains. We need the Japanese auto plants all to work at the same time. We need Malaysian chip factories to work all at the same time. We need the supply chains to work, transportation links to work again, and workers around the world fall ill, have to be caretakers, and we were forced to close plants, for example. Once this comes back together, then the rest of it can heal and bring the total business cycle back into focus. And we have oil in Houston. That's a sad story since 2014, an ongoing story. I know a lot of people are thinking, well, $100 oil, we're finally going to fix that problem, right? And the answer is no, I don't think so. I think the fracking industry has finally learned that it's a high-cost source of oil, that this is going to be much more difficult for the long run than most people realize as they look at the future of Houston. It's been a sad story since 2014. The fracking bubble burst in 2014. A moderate recovery in oil prices in 2017 and 18. Turns out with oil prices at $55, the fracking doesn't turn out to be profitable. The financial industry turns back on the industry, and credit crunch sets in. Then comes COVID, and this is an industry that has taken $300 billion of assets through bankruptcy since 2014. Oil prices have been up for a while. They have been up without any question. They've been up 70. These are monthly figures. So for 6 months, we've been up at $70 and higher. And yet, if we look at the rig count, we have a rig count that in 2014 was at 2,000 working rigs. And the rig count is still a good measure of oil field activity in the U.S. Then the decline with the fracking bust, a recovery that finally came back to about 1,000 working rigs before the credit crunch sets in, COVID comes, and our recovery so far, even with oil prices rising at $70 and $80 a barrel, we have brought back about fewer than 600 working rigs on a monthly basis. So there's not been the big response that I think a lot of folks expected. And in terms of oil employment, we lost around 37,000 jobs, about 13 or 14,000 of those jobs have returned so far. And it's going to be difficult to make a lot of progress in the near term in terms of bringing these jobs back. Well, this is sort of some perspective on this, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time here, but the history, like this, the industry was born with $100 oil. It had a silver spoon in its mouth. It was $100 oil and 0 interest rates, basically, when fracking was born. Fracking grew at 24% per year, at least the lifting tight oil grew at 24% per year from 2005 to 2014. Why not? They were a growth stock. They were doing great, but the problem, of course, was that they had to have they had to have at least $65 oil. As soon as OPEC figured out $55 was pretty much lethal, which it did, then we have seen serious problems since that time. And after these 3 rounds of bankruptcies, $295 billion taken through from 2014 to 2020, local services and producers, investors have been really tough to find unless you can offer them a deal. And now you would like, wait a minute, next one. And now what you have to do is offer to pay them to invest in your company. These aren't growth stocks anymore. These are value stocks, and you're going to be diverting about 30% of your free cash flows off to make people feel good about investing in your company. But 30% is, well, that means a lot less money going into the oil fields, right? It would have gone to the oil fields previously. And so we see production, for example, we see the rig count, we see employment not at previous levels, even with the higher prices. And the S&P stock returns index reflects this. We have seen the latest data shows that producers, at least, having steadily promised and committed and delivered on those on their promise of diverting money into investors, have in fact been rewarded to some extent for that. Nothing like the history would indicate. So basically where we are, let's suppose we get $100 oil, and Putin, who knows, it could be much higher than that for all I know. But $100 oil in 2014 or 2018, that was $100 oil. We know how that worked in terms of what we're doing to the oil fields. Now, after the cash flow cuts, if it's a 30% diversion of free cash flows, that will have about the same economic impact today as $77 would have had back in 2014. So your $100, well, you know how that worked. Well, no, it's really going to work like it's $77 now. And if it was $65, it really works like it's $50 now. And right on down this list. So oil is going to have less impact on Houston than it had previously. And we're talking about a smaller oil industry and ultimately a somewhat smaller Houston as a result. Over the last 30 years, up to 2019, Houston grew at a phenomenal rate, 2% per year. And the US at the same time collectively grew about 1.1%. Almost, so Houston was doing phenomenal with a lot of help from oil. If it was 2%, about 30% of that growth over that time period came from oil. And at least half of that is now wiped out. So if we do that, we can say Houston's going to grow maybe 1.7% in the future because that oil contribution is less. But hey, look, it's not 2%, I understand, but it's not 1.1% either, which has been the US norm for some time. But recognize that it's going to be slower. Oil's going to make less of the contribution, but it should be stable as we move forward. So I think this is useful to point out. And how do we put the forecast together at this point in time, given this enormous shock from COVID? If you have any statisticians in the room, you know that this kind of shock, you can't just fix things. It doesn't work. But here's our history to this point. Right here at the very end of it, that's where we stand today, at least in terms of the numbers. There's the big COVID decline. We're recovering. We're here. And this was a shock, a recession, and an oil price decline. Now, what if this had just been an oil price decline? Suppose this was a serious recession in Houston, losing around 80,000 jobs. That's what we saw in the base. Suppose it was a couple of quarters of $40 oil. It was. But suppose it hadn't been a shock. Our long-term growth, we would have had this kind of a recession. And that would still be our long-term growth rate. That would be how we would grow in the long run without that shock. So we're here somehow once COVID's gone, we're going back on that line. We're getting back up there. The question is when and how, and that's the part no statistician can tell you. Dr. Fauci can't either. So I guess, and you'll find the guesswork here, it looks something like this. It will be either higher or lower than the median line that I drew to connect them up. That's basically the story. And so here is our COVID decline. Here is our pattern of recovery. And then we go into a long-term pattern of growth that's going to be slower because of oil. It's not 2%, it's now 1.7%, but there's a high forecast with higher oil prices and a low forecast with lower prices. Simple as that. And this is what the forecast looks like. This is our medium forecast. And we put this together and just Friday, we got the numbers to actually say what happened in 2021. We got the December numbers, and our forecast was 151,000 jobs. Phenomenal numbers, the best ever for Houston job growth. And the December data was 141. So given the outrageous uncertainties associated with these numbers, this is pretty good. So I'll take it without any question. When you're wrong as a forecaster, but when you're right, never let them forget it. And that this will be a good year next year. We still need to reassemble the business cycle. You can see that jobs last year largely weighted to a social distancing, local recovery. Next year, we'll be bringing back jobs in the broader national business cycle and beyond. And then we settle in, hopefully, to a nice steady 60,000 jobs per year here in the Houston metro area. That's what it looks like with highs and lows thrown in, if you want to see the high and low projections. So just to finish up, be the second half of the year before we get back pre-2020 levels. Be careful with these numbers. There are a lot of real estate developers out there selling a lot of stuff right now. So be careful with the numbers. Remember, we have lost 2+ years of growth and we're trying to get back. If COVID hadn't struck, this community would be 5% bigger than before, with any luck at all. And the stimulus is not, it's not going away, but it is really slowing down. And then the Federal Reserve will slow it further. We're now going to have moderate headwinds, but they're going to be replacing that hurricane of cash that ran through last year. Lower oil production, less help from oil, and the broader questions about oil's future, which are all still there, global warming and ESG and so forth. They're still out there. I have not factored that in any way into the forecast. That's certainly not so far, but there's no question they also weigh on the present. All right, any questions? Do we have time? Go up, man.
I didn't see anything in here what's factored into the growth, the population growth that's coming to Texas.
Right.
Like Austin, boom, Houston. I didn't see any numbers here. Is there any projections of how much that is continuing to increase?
Texas is doing very well. Houston attracted about the same number of jobs same number of population in terms of population growth last year as San Antonio. Dallas and Austin far outstripped. I don't have the numbers off the top of my head, but they far outstripped anything that has happened here.
Tied to that, is that kind of where you see Dallas, Fort Worth, where the percentage of the recovery is? I was going to ask you that. What's tied to how they gained it quicker than we have?
Well, they don't have oil. That's the one thing I can tell you, right? If you take that big oil sector out of Houston, all of those numbers would look really great right now.
Okay.
But remember, the history of oil over the long run is that we like oil. That's where that extra 0.6% growth comes from. That's why we get up close to 2% growth over the long run. I always tell people if they would just learn to fasten their seat belts in Houston, they would be much better off and not go out there and build 10 new apartment buildings every time the price of oil is $90 a barrel.
Bob's got a question.
Yeah. Has Houston's region seen any funds moving into the green energy sector?
I don't know. I haven't really been keeping up
Okay.
with that. I was just at the Ion today. The center there smells a lot of, there's more wallboard going up than there are people in offices, as far as I can see. And of course, the old Fiesta store has been turned into that green center. This is all Rice money that is behind these projects and the kind of thing Rice does historically for Houston. We'll have to see. We have tried this kind of thing before. And what happens, I'm sure you can list the number of times as well as I can, but what happens, oil does go to $100 a barrel, and all of the would-be tech workers get hired by the oil companies. And they can afford anything. They'll buy everybody in town. And then, of course, comes the bust. We don't have the tech, and we don't have the people. So that's been the history of it. It's a sad history. Maybe this time, more stable oil sector, smaller oil sector, maybe it'll work better.
George?
Dr. Gilmer, thank you for your presentation. I understand how you calculate what the number of jobs was pre-bust, I'll say COVID bust, but I'm curious how impactful it is on the figures, those jobs that are available but aren't being filled. And by way of example, I'm a lawyer. Okay, I could hire 3 lawyers for my team tomorrow.
Yeah.
3 staff members, I can't fill the positions. Okay, so there are clearly jobs. I know a lot of folks who are in service industries here have positions to be filled, but they're not. So
yeah.
I suspect they don't figure into your calculations, but I'm not as smart as you are in that area, so I want to hear what you have to say.
Well, I'll be honest, I don't know. I don't understand exactly what is going on now. I just walked through a strip mall, and one of the bigger ones, and every door, one after one, we need help now. Apply here, every door you go by. They can't open, well, let's give an example of not opening a restaurant. There's one close to my house that didn't open for a very long time because of the workers. I don't really understand what exactly is going on there because the unemployment compensation, I think that was one explanation you can come up with. That disappeared in July for the most part. So that would be a long time for most waiters and waitresses and bartenders to stay home without any help. I do not understand exactly what's going on in terms of people staying home.
But that is the case in the restaurant industry as well. I have a lot of exposure in that industry. They can't hire and maintain people. COVID aside.
Yeah. Certainly anything in retail walking around.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
So to piggyback on that, this great resignation you hear all about.
Yeah.
Is that a myth? Is that reality? Where are the people going? What are they doing?
Supposedly there are huge surge in applications for to start a new business. An unprecedented kind of surge. What they're going to do, I don't have any idea. The raw data says the savings. We have not had a huge surge in savings. If you just look at the data from straight out of the VEA's personal income data, that says that we're back at personal savings are back at pre-pandemic levels as well. Those numbers are very crude, so they could be wrong. If you look at things like savings accounts, if you just look at that financial data, it says that there's still a lot of money. People actually saved a lot of that money, and they may be starting new businesses with it. But again, it's all a jumble right now. The statistical agencies have been doing everything they can, but I don't trust much of it very far.
Yeah, one more time for one. Yeah, one more.
In your calculations with the unemployment here in Houston, is there any kind of calculation with remote work? Because, people might be not working in their current job here, but working in Austin or some other, state. So how that calculation comes up, whether or not they're unemployed or whether or not they're just not looking for work here. Did you?
Okay, now the payroll, there are two surveys that are done, and they're both saying very similar things for Houston. One is a payroll employment figure, and that's based on actually a census. If you are running a payroll in the US, you have to report those figures to the government. And it takes 4 or 5 or 6 months before those numbers will actually be fully assembled. But along the way, we have a great idea of what's going on with payroll. Well, not so great, but a good idea. Now, the unemployment figures are not just payrolls. These are going to have your gig workers in it. They have everyone. This is a telephone survey of households, and very carefully, statistically constructed, and but it very often goes off different directions from the payroll numbers for brief periods of time, and this may be one of those times. But right now, the Houston numbers they basically say that there was not very many people who dropped out of the labor force, who have decided that they no longer want to look for work. This is that telephone survey saying, no, we're not seeing that. In contrast, the US survey is saying, hey, we got a lot of people that just dropped out of the labor force. They're no longer looking for work. They're no longer employed. You have to have 2 things. You have to be out of work and you have to be actively looking for work. If you're not looking for work, then you're not employed at all in that survey. And but that telephone survey says across the US, large numbers of people dropped out, but in Houston, we don't see that. Bad sample in Houston.
Okay, I don't know, Gary, you got a quick
Inflation.
question?
Inflation.
Inflation.
Don't tell me we don't have it.
No,
When I go to the grocery store, I know it.
but I showed you the numbers. I don't know what happened to our charts here, but I could provide a much better set of charts than.
Yeah, we'll get it cleaned up soon.
But anyway, inflation, no question, it is a problem. And I don't have any doubt that handing every household in America $30,000 could probably promote some of that, right? Fortunately, that is going away. The Federal Reserve has been slow to respond by my lights at any rate, but it has responded. And it's still saying there is that it's going to be headed back to that 2% range. That's the target the Fed has set. And the history is that bad governors and bad chairs were appointed first by President Nixon and then by Carter. And then Carter finally appointed Paul Volcker, and Volcker took care of it. He broke the back of inflation, also broke the back of the US economy, doing it for a while. But he made it work.
Still have a problem with Jimmy Carter just for that. 18% prime rate is just not.
I'll go ahead and get it. I guess, yeah, one more question and then we gotta let Mark go.
Dr. Gilmer, thank you again for your presentation. You mentioned that the oil sector is slowly starting to shrink, or is continuing that particular trend. What other sectors do you foresee taking place or replacing that particular sector to be able to sustain our local economy going forward?
I think I've always thought of trying to pick those kinds of sectors as a little like trying to pick stocks. It's kind of a hit and miss proposition, right? I would say broadly, what you need to do is just prepare yourself for a wide range of industries who would be happy to be here. We got ourselves a bad reputation with Harvey. I know our state legislators and everyone just loved all the federal money they brought in, but they also gave this area a bad reputation in terms of moving here, in terms of living in Houston, They literally painted this as a disaster area, as a place to live. And we have this, you mentioned employment numbers. This last year sees the first time we have seen domestic immigration into Houston since 2014, since the fracking boom years. So we're having trouble drawing people into the area. We're not Austin, and we're not Dallas, but just that Dallas is a fabulous location in the middle of the country, perfect airport, right? They're right there, East Coast, West Coast, and we're not there either. We are the port. We have lots of advantages, but we're going to have to figure out what they are and capitalize on. And it may or may not be tech. I don't know why the fascination with tech. Tech, by the way, did you know there's only one city in America that has a bigger percentage drop in employment in the history of its business cycle, and that's San Jose during 2020 and back in that was 2001, 2002.
Yeah, that's the high water mark.
So be careful what you wish for, right?
Thank you very much. All right. Give me a so yeah, everybody's got their stuff in the email. Roll it up one more time. There we go. Happy New, whoa, no, Happy New Year. Come on, Happy New Year. Love it when we can celebrate 2 new years. So, get your party stuff out and put it around and come the first, get your tigers, get your cats. And finally, one last thought. I can't say it necessarily, but this is from Confucius, since it is Chinese New Year, but the man who removes a mountain begins by carrying away small stone. So let's carry away a small stone in February and be back here at the end of the month. See you all later. Thank you very much.
All right.
Thanks to Bill.
Yeah.
Hi, everyone. Nice to see you, even if at a distance.
And you raised a lot of questions.
Does the website have those, your slideshow? Yeah, it'd be nice to. Hop on conversation. Very good.
I have a feeling this is, anyway, I think it's like, if they're not, just Google my name at the University of Houston and send me a note and I'll slide.
See you in Houston, which I saw, I don't remember most of business. Seemed surprising. I saw a statistic that showed last 12 months that Houston was the #1 in the nation for retail.
For what?
Retail leasing.
Oh.
And I see it just from the centers we have and stuff, just so many companies from the East Coast, West Coast, everybody was paying. You're seeing a lot.
Okay, retail in Houston has actually been super well behaved. Unlike most of the commercial real estate sectors, this one is behaved. And they have not expanded over the last 10 or 15 years unless they meet. And I have a feeling the local banks probably have.
They did. I put together centers, developments,